This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome everyone. This training video is going to cover workflow from the home page. So your office events on the home page for business type tax preparation. So we're going to go from the top all the way to the bottom, and depending on what your job duties are, you probably won't, there's no way you're going to need to know them all. I know them all, but you will not need to know them all. But it all depends on if you're a tax preparer, a greeter, or whatnot. So we're going to go through the ones, just so you'll have an overview of them, and possibly like if you're, again, based on your job description, you may not need to know them. So don't stress about it if you don't understand them. All right, so we're going to stop. We're going to start here with to-do list. So I'm going to move this over to my other screen. Right here, this is what we're talking about: office events and business type tax preparation over on the left-hand side here. This is basically what this is a flow of everything that takes place in the office related to the client. So if we do 7,000 returns this year, then there will be 7,000 records in this left-hand side here. It could be anywhere in one of these events or statuses, all the way down to where it'll show completed at the bottom here. So that's the goal, to go from the top when they drop it off or they walk in the door, and all the way to completed. It means everything's finished. We did everything we had to do. All right, so let's start here at the top. And also you can, if you're not even looking at these, if you want to get rid of this, if you just check left click here, that's going to collapse everything. Possibly the phone staff may not need to know about all this stuff, but I mean, you may want to look at it just so you see what's going on. But we're going to go ahead and left click again to expand it out. And then each one of these are called event categories. And if it's not relevant to you, you can go ahead and collapse it. So if you don't need to see the to-do list items here, which many of you probably don't, or I don't know, maybe some of you do, some of you don't. But I'm going to go over this. So the very first one, and then if you hover over it now, it's actually going to tell you what it is. So if you look here, it's an office manager task, not user specific. For example, delete a file, etc. So that's, if you see them hovering over that. So each one tells you what they are. So what that means is, say for example, client walks through the door, they get checked in, and then they said, no, I was really dropping my stuff off for my brother. It's not for me. So then, and they say, I'm not even going to come to your office this year, which hopefully they don't say that. But if they do, that means we don't want to record them really as a 2024 file. So whoever's at the lobby might then move this from out of here where it says, it'll automatically, when they check themselves in, it's going to pop them in prepare now waiting. Here we have Betty here. Let's just say we want to delete this one completely. Well, most people don't have control to do that, the power to do that. So they would move it up to office manager to do. So anybody who has the authority of an office manager, doesn't have to be anyone specific. There's, I think, 3 or 4 of us in the office that can do it. You would then just go in the file, and you come over here to quick actions, hit add an event. So status and event are the same things. And then I would then move it up to do office manager to dos. And then I'm going to make a note, and you probably have to put something in here, say not assigned, because there's not a specific preparer. And then say delete this account year client came in by mistake. And then I can save it. You don't even have to assign it to anybody. And then this pops up saying, "Are you want to assign it to anyone?" I'm going to say no. I'm just going to let anyone who has the office manager rights can go ahead and do it. So now when I go back to my home page, now I have right here. So the people that have the office manager rights, most likely it's going to be probably Melvin, keeping an eye on this. It'll eventually say past due, I think after 24 hours, but he would go in here, read what the notes are, and then go ahead and delete it. So that's what this event is for up here. Anything that you can't do and it's not time sensitive, like if something has to be done immediately, don't put it up there, because it probably won't get done unless you put it up there and you mark it urgent. And now I'm going a little deeper than what I wanted to do, but you can tag these urgent and it would flash urgent. So if it's time sensitive, use urgent, or just go talk to somebody, go talk to Melvin or something, or Ethan. All right, that's what this one is. This next one, my to-dos, if you look here, it says it's user specific, and I say long-term task, and it's filtered by an account year. So what does all that mean? So right now, if you look here, it says 1/19. And actually, if I, so when I click on this, so I'm under my user, so Mark Preco. So here's my one, so and there's 19 total in there. So if I were to come up here and click here and say all, I get to see all 19 of them. But I don't want to focus on all 19. Maybe that individual, Melvin, who's trying to organize the homepage, he can focus on all 19 and make sure they're getting done. I'm just looking at my own to make sure mine gets done timely. So I'm going to go ahead and just focus on Mark's. And so what we use to my to-do list, say a client comes in, drops off some information and says, I just want Mark to do the return. So I would then, and it's not time sensitive, I don't need to get it done instantly. I then move it up to my to-dos to get it out of the general Dropbox area where everybody's going to grab it. And now this is just mine. All right. And it'll pop as mine as long as I'm listed right here as it, and then we call this the account user because I'm in my account information section. So I did make a change here. So if I'm the preparer, it's going to show up in my to-dos. Okay. So that's what this is. It's just a way of keeping things organized for usually the preparers are the ones doing this. So you work on it, you work on something and you want to keep working on it, then you just move it up to my to-dos, work on it maybe 2 or 3 days later when you're not as busy. But you don't want to put it in a general like Dropbox, which is like prepare next, not waiting. That's a free-for-all. That means this is free game for anybody to grab. So if it's specific to a user, move it up here to my to-dos. And then, and this is going outside of this a little bit, part of the drop-off workflow is we'd also want to assign it to make sure that preparer is aware it's sitting in there. Because yeah, I have one out of 19 here, but if I get another 2 or 3, I might forget how many did I have. So I would like to be alerted at least that, hey, someone just moved it into my to-do list so I know it's there, and then I will manage it and put due dates on it. That's what this is for. So probably preparers mostly. Now let's go down to prepare. So what does that mean? That is, these are clients that want their tax returns done. All the docs are in, and we're ready to work on the tax return. So prepare now waiting. I'll go ahead and move Betty out of there. Where did she go? Bing. Right here. And I think I'll put it as mine. I'll make it Mark Preco as the preparer. So I'm the account user. Save it. And I'm going to move it down to add event. And I'm going to move it to prepare now waiting. Save it. I'm going to go back to my home page. So typically what happens here is the client would check in either virtually or in the lobby with the check-in screen. They automatically default to this event instantly. There's no way of getting around it. Okay, so it means ready for tax prep, client is waiting. So the only time I want anybody in there, now again, I know this is a starting point, so even if a client drops their stuff off and they don't need it done today, first it's going to hit here and then you need to move it out of there quickly because the preparer might grab it. Because if you look at what the definition is, ready for tax prep, client is waiting. So us as preparers need to go grab those things, pounce on them, and actually do the return because the client is waiting. Now, the client may not be physically waiting in the lobby. They may be waiting at home virtually on their couch. Either way, they're waiting for you to do their taxes right now. And that's why it says now waiting. So at the end of the night, ideally, nothing should be in here because we can't do the return now. And I doubt the client's going to be waiting 12 hours until we get back tomorrow. I mean, they're not really waiting. But if the only time I'd say do it overnight is if the return needs to be done right away as soon as we get there the next morning. All right, so that we know, let's grab it right away. This is the first one to start working on. but typically this should be emptied out. Okay, because it's supposed to be like current, as if when the clients are rolling in right away during the day, and then they hit there, move it out. So again, Melvin, who's going to be monitoring this, or anyone that has some free time that understands the homepage, if you see stuff sitting in there and it shouldn't be sitting in there, let's figure out why it's sitting in there, move it to where it's supposed to be, and then explain to the person who left it in there it doesn't belong in there. Okay, that's what I'm saying. So I want to try to keep this area cluttered free, because if we keep leaving things in there that shouldn't be in there, then our preparers aren't going to trust when it has an amount in there that it actually is somebody waiting to actually get their taxes done now. So that's why we can't just leave it as a drop box for whatever reason. It's current. It needs to be worked on like right now. So we have to make sure we treat it that way too. Next, this is a new event for people returning from last year. This is called Prepare Now, Finish Up Pending. So what this is, client came in, somebody worked on the return in the office. We couldn't finish it because the client didn't have all the information. Maybe they're missing the W-2 or a child's social security number. So then the preparer then moved it down to pending client right here. Sat there for whoever knows how long. Client then comes in with a W-2 or calls in with a social security number. Say it's a social security number. We take the social security number over the phone. The phone staff does. They'll move it out of pending client, and they're now going to move it up to Prepare Now, Finish Up Pending. So what that means is it's already started, just need to finish up the pending file. In this case, it's very simple. Just enter a social security number for the child. Now, I think it's simple because I know how to do taxes. So the phone staff, that's not their job. They don't do taxes. They don't get into Drake software. So they need to push it up here and have somebody finish up. So this is, I do say prepare now. Obviously the client wants to get it done probably today, but it was their fault. So it's not like urgent, like needs to be done like right now. They're waiting. So they're actually not waiting. I want it prepared now. Hopefully within 24 hours, all depends on how busy we are. But so how we should go in the pecking order would be, obviously this one's top priority because this person's waiting. All right. Next would be right here. Let's finish this up. It's probably only going to take 10 minutes to finish, and it's a pending file, and we can, anybody can finish this. Doesn't have to be the person who started it. Anybody can finish it. All right. That's what this is right here. So these two are priority. Priority 1, priority 2. Then we go down to priority 3, which is prepare next, not waiting. And what that means is that's like our drop off. Client dropped their information off. They might have a due date as to when they want it. And if that's the case, whoever logs this stuff in will put the due date in there. If it's urgent, it would actually go to the top. But us as preparers, what we're tracking is that if I see anything sitting in here and I'm not doing anything because I'm waiting for somebody to come through the door, let's go grab one. All right. And let's start working on them. And then just the docs should be here. Either they're scanned in, they may have came through the portal. Now, if I click on this right now, let's see what's going on. This one, docs uploaded through the portal. So that's what we use these categories for. So now I know the docs are in, and now I can start working on them. And I'm not going to get into the process of what you do once you start working on them. That's another training video. But that's what this one is for. So if you have nothing to do, and now we have staff to walk around and check to make sure everybody's staying busy. I mean, you don't need to go crazy, but you will probably be asked if you're not doing anything, and we can see on the homepage there is work to be done, that they would probably kindly ask you, hey, you want to grab one out of Prepare Next, Not Waiting, because it doesn't look like you're doing anything. Or if you're, again, you don't have anybody in front of you, but now we have virtual clients, so you might look like you're not doing anything, but maybe you are doing something. So you got to kind of communicate with the service window people and the lobby people. And I'm talking about the tax preparers now, so that they're aware of what's going on if you're busy or not, because they might come to you and say, hey, we got a live one in the lobby. Can you grab it? Because we don't want to make them wait. Again, as I said in the orientation, it's customer service. Let's help our clients right away. They're busy. They're paying us, so let's get them in. Let's get them out. But anyway, so if you're working on something, you might want to let the greeter know, or even the service window people know, hey, I'm going to be busy for 30 minutes. It might look like I'm not doing anything, but I actually am. So you might want to give the next one to somebody else. Like say you have a bunch of assigned tasks you got to take care of. Anyways, it's all about, we want to communicate with our clients. We want to communicate with everybody in the office too. So we're all on the same page, and we're all striving for the same goal. But all right, I went off on a little bit on a tangent there, but that's what Prepare Next, Not Waiting is all about. Prepare Later, Future Appointment. This one seems to be a struggle for many of our employees here. What that means is and now I have a nice description, so I hope this will help everybody. So the docs are dropped off. So the client could have physically walked in, shoved them through our Dropbox. However, the docs are here. They could have been through the portal, could have been through texting. Either way, the docs are in and they have a future appointment. Sometime not right now. Okay, I don't care if it's later in the day, but when the docs come in, someone's, there's another person, there's another team managing that, but they have to add a year. So put that to 2024. So as soon as you add a year, 2024, as I said, it's automatically going into Prepare Not Waiting. But we don't want to work on it right now because the client's got an appointment. So the client set aside some time to actually do the return at that time when they're available. So we have to put it somewhere. So where we're putting it is right here. It's Prepare Later on the appointment time, and it's has a future appointment. So I just, the only reason I'm have this an event for any reason is just because the clients gave me their documents. So I have to add a current year and I need to move that somewhere. That's what this is. So when I click on this, I should not have a record in here, a client in here, unless there is a scheduled appointment. At least I can't think of a reason right now. So I've seen one in there a few times now, and there's no appointment. So I'm thinking, well, it's supposed to have an appointment for the future, for a future date. So it should be right here. Otherwise, it does not belong in that event. Okay. So we're just trying to keep this thing clutter free, put things where they belong. If you don't know where they belong, there's several people in the office you can ask. A lot of people are just returning, so this is all new to them, or, it's a year later, so you got to remember what to do. So not a big deal. We just want to try to, get it right. So keep going forward. Everything keeps clean and clutter free. That's what this is all about. So then when that appointment time, like this one's January 6th, 11 a.m., and it says it's a phone appointment, and you look here, docs uploaded to the portal. So at that time, this is going to pop. If the client doesn't check themselves in what they're supposed to do, it'll say right here, do now. So that's going to alert the preparers, oh my gosh, there's an appointment that's due now. I'm not doing anything. Let's grab that. Let's give them good customer service and take care of the client. They have an appointment. We have the documents. Let's start working on it. Okay. So that's what the homepage is telling us. And again, you then as a preparer, I'm jumping ahead a little, you'd move it out of here and of course move it down to tax prep in process, because there's about 8 of you out there. So how does all 8 of you know I'm grabbing that one? That's how it knows. You're going to move it out of there and move it down to tax prep, so you don't have to scream off to everybody like, I got this one. That's how this whole workflow works. The whole office sees this, so we all got to work as a team and move things where they belong, and we will run like a well-oiled machine. If we do not move them where they're supposed to be, we clunk along and we screw things up. Okay, so that's the goal. Just got to get all on the same page. And it's going to take a little bit of time to learn. I'm fine with that. Jot little notes down. If you don't understand or whatever, just go ask people. And that's part of why this video exists, is trying to show you guys where all this stuff is. And there's a reason for every one of these events. So if you don't know why it's going in there, don't put it in there. Just go ask somebody and say, is this going in the right spot? All right, later prior year amendment. Again, I'm preparing this later. There's no rush. If there was a rush, I'd be moving it up because it goes in priority. So priorities, this one's first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Later means I'll work on my prior years and my amendments when things slow down. or if I'm not doing anything, I'll go ahead and grab it. So right here, there's one sitting in here, 2022. So when we come in the office on Monday, if someone's got nothing to do and they can actually do a prior return, this one's a little tricky. Start working on it. Just because it says later doesn't mean it's got to be, you got to make them wait 2 weeks. If you're not doing anything, just start grabbing anything out of here. All right. I will never complain about that. Tax preparation in process. So you preparers, as you start working on a return, I don't care if it's an amendment. I don't care if it's a prior year. I don't care if it's a current year. If you are working on a tax return, I want you to move it out of the status it's currently in and move it into tax prep in process. There's several reasons why this is. One is, which is beneficial to you, is, as you probably know, I'm tracking how many returns you do, and I do that based on when it hits tax prep in process. If you don't move it into process and you leave it in return pickup or pending client or prepare now waiting, at the end of the day, I look and say, like, oh my God, Melvin didn't do anything all day long. Okay, so you're actually going to then get somebody coming to you and say, what did you do? So that's the main thing, is this is for you because it's a counter for you. All right. But secondary to that, I track how long it takes to work on every single tax return. So as soon as you hit in process, the clock starts ticking, even though you don't even realize it, but the clock is ticking on that client. It's also charging them a dollar amount fee based on a billable amount. I know we bill by form, but I compare the forms Drake say the fee is compared to how much time I'm spending on a tax return. So when you don't move it in process, I'm not seeing how much time it's taking you to do the return. So I don't care if you're the first preparer that touched it, the second, the third, the fourth. Every time you do anything on that return, move it to in process. Now, I'm not perfect at doing this. Because I have some returns that they constantly are giving me information. So like, could be 10 times I hit it. I wish I would do it every time, and I'm trying to get better at it. But the majority of the returns you guys are going to do are pretty straightforward. If somebody touches it twice, that's probably about all you're going to get involved with. But if it's in pending client, someone moves it up here to prepare now finish pending. When you start working on it, move it down here to in process. One, to get it out of here so then someone else doesn't grab it. And two, we're tracking that you're actually working on it. Okay. So very important to move things along the way. Only takes 5 seconds. Okay. But that 5 seconds you just took right there are going to save possibly an hour when an issue arises and we have to figure out, oh, who entered this stuff? Who entered this? As opposed to looking at a whole page of notes and trying to dig in and read. I can easily go right to tax prep in process. Oh, Ethan worked on it this time and entered someone's social security number. Otherwise, it's very time consuming to dig into all those notes. Okay. And all you're saving yourself is 5 seconds. So in the big scheme of things, just move it to where it's supposed to be. And again, we run like a well-oiled machine. Okay, print. Hopefully we're not going to have to do any of this. This was for our remote preparers last year. I mean, if someone gets sick or whatever, and we have to go that route, obviously we'll start pulling this in here and then move some to prepare now waiting. I'd work a lot remote still because I work more than 40 hours in a week, if you can believe it. So I will do returns at home and I will probably move it to here. I don't have a problem printing when I get in there. Someone doesn't have to do the printing. I just need to move it to an event so I know what needs to be done, just keeping the flow going. But that's what this is all about. So most likely we can probably collapse these. I mean, I probably won't collapse them just because I make sure I see it. Or the people at the window probably shouldn't collapse them because they're using one printing. So payment, this is like a cashier. The only time we probably use this is if Jeff is usually going to work the front window. Say the client's coming up right now. Say they're sitting in the parking lot and you're doing the return and they just don't want to come in because they're sick or whatever reason. They just don't want to take a chance of getting sick. I don't care what the reason is, but they're going to be coming up to the window like instantly. In that case, I would probably move it from tax prep right to cashier and then let the client know, come on up. And then you might want to run to Jeff and say, hey, I just moved it to cashier. Whatever. So he doesn't have to search for it. He can easily just grab them real quick. Otherwise, this doesn't get used too often. Review. So this is the review process. So, and again, it all depends on what your job title is, which events you get involved with. So tax preparer, I mean, I guess if it's a bank product, you're going to move it to review 1040. And after that, you're kind of out of the swing of things. Now 1040s, that's basically partnership. That's anything other than an amendment for review. So this is when the review process begins. So it depends on if it's a drop off and now they're picking up. So then say the service window people will then move it to, review, or if it's a bank product, then you're going to move it right to review. If you just worked on an amendment, then you're going to move it down here to review amendments. And the reason we broke these two up is because we need to treat amendments a little differently than a regular tax return. We want to look at it closer just to make sure it actually gets acknowledged and we don't overlook it, because unfortunately the import that comes in from Drake into Adam is not perfect for amendments. So we just got to pay closer attention to amendments. So that's kind of why we're itemizing them out and pulling them out of here. In process, that just means whoever's reviewing, once they start reviewing, they're going to change the event to in process. And again, there's two main reasons for this. One is I can look and see how many returns did you review in a day. Again, so that's a good thing. That's a plus for you, or it could be a minus if you don't review that many and you should have reviewed more. But also I can see who reviewed the return. And mainly I only look at that is when a problem arises. First thing I do is a client comes in with a letter, say they're missing the W-2 on the return. That's what the IRS says. First thing I do is I'm going to go look and see, did we have all those W-2s? And then second, if we did, then I'm going to go, who reviewed the return and how did they miss that? But if you don't move it to in process, I don't know who did I don't know who did it. Again, I probably have to dig in, read all the notes and try to figure it out. Whereas if you just take 5 seconds and move it to the right event, it only takes me 5 seconds to know who reviewed the return. Same way with tax prep. Additional help needed. This is going to be for the reviewer. So if it's over their head and they're doing a return and they're trying to review it and it's just like way beyond their knowledge, like a K1 or something, then they'll move it down here and most likely probably assign it to myself, or possibly Ethan, to just a little, extra help. It's, something they don't normally see. And then of course they're going to make a note too, explaining what's going on. And then reviewer questions. And again, the issue, I guess I have an issue with return, question assigned to a preparer. So that means the reviewer looked at it, didn't like something, thinks there might be an issue, maybe there isn't an issue, but they just want to ask a question just to make sure we don't e-file this thing and it's incorrect. And they're going to assign it to that preparer with a note explaining what the problem is and then take it from there. So ideally, we don't want to see any questions out there at the end of the day. I don't really want them sitting there more than 24 hours. So you guys that are not coming in regularly full time, like the students most likely. So if you're leaving at the end of the day, please make sure you've gone through to make sure all your reviewer questions are answered, because you might not come back for 3 days. And guess what? That client wants their money now. So they don't want to wait 3 days for you to return. So you always got to, this is always a sense of urgency. Reviewer questions need to be answered timely. Okay. Now some are going to take longer to investigate. And it depends on the client. Some are like, they're fine with waiting 3 days because of the type of client they are. But that's usually my client. Okay. And if I have to investigate it further, I know if I can wait a day or two. But you guys, students, you're not going to have that type of return. For the most part, yours need to be answered before you leave. Otherwise, someone's going to have to do the work for you, and we don't want to do that. EF ready, that just means the returns. Now it's gone through the review process. It's ready to be transmitted. So now our person who's involved in transmitting will go ahead and transmit those. And then again, we have EF ready amendment. So whoever's reviewing, if you just reviewed an amendment, you're going to move it down to EF ready amendments. And again, the reason we're doing that is because the import process from Drake does not pull in amendments very well. It doesn't stand out as well as we'd like it to. So we have to dig in a little closer to make sure that they were accepted. So from here, we then move it down to awaiting acknowledgments. So 1040s are going to be pretty much everything other than an amendment. So that includes partnerships and all that. We just don't do that many partnerships or S Corps. So we're pretty much just identifying as 1040s. Here, if it's an amendment, again, if you e-filed it, you're waiting for the acknowledgement for amendments, park it here. Bank approval. So right now, because we're at this point, it's January 5th. IRS hasn't started accepting yet. So when we send anything, we're actually not sending it to the IRS right now. We're actually sending to the bank first if the client wants a refund advance. So from here, it actually goes until probably like mid-January, until the IRS starts accepting returns, and I'll send out a message once they do. It's going to go down from, once we transmit, it's going to go. And again, this is more than you need to know if you're a preparer and phone staff and all that. This is, again, you can probably block this stuff out, but I got to explain it all in one process here. So it's going to move from here right to bank approval, because we're waiting for the bank to say, hey, did they get the refund advance? And then once it gets approved or denied, it's going to go back up here to awaiting Acts 1040, because the IRS has not accepted it yet. Now, once we get out of this pre-acknowledgement state, which means once the IRS starts accepting, then it's going to go first to the IRS, then to the bank. But because the IRS isn't on yet, it goes to the bank and then to the IRS. So it's, it's not a nice flow right now because of the IRS isn't accepting yet. But give it a couple weeks. But so we just have to move them that way at this point. IRS to fund the bank. Once we start rolling and the IRS accepts the returns and everything, then we haven't got paid yet until the IRS releases a refund. So then it moves down to what's called our IRS to fund the bank. And this is if it's a bank product. Rejects, this is for a person who's doing the transmitting. Once the return gets e-filed, if the IRS rejects it for whatever reason, the kid's social is not correct, it comes down here to IRS rejected returns. The person handling rejects takes care of that. Declined refund advances. So if a client tries to get a refund advance, it's not approved. We will move it from, say it's right here waiting for bank approval, it gets denied. Now, if it's pre-acknowledgement stage where the IRS hasn't even accepted it yet, it's got to go back up here. Then once it gets accepted by the IRS, it would then move to, actually goes to awaiting IRS to fund the bank. So I think right here, prior to the IRS accepting, again, it's a little confusing, but we'll send the denial probably right up here. Once the IRS starts turning on, then it'll go here, then it goes up here. But again, this is only for a select few people that have to understand this. Pickup, this is for checks. So if we print a check in the office, this is where it's going to be. We're going to move it here to print check, pick up checks. Obviously, we're going to contact the client, let them know to come in. E-sign, again, now we're back for the tax preparer involvement. So if you're doing a tax return, the client wants to e-sign, you're going to, you have to learn how to set that up. That's another training video. But then the next step is you're going to move it down to is what's called pick up e-sign. So now we're waiting for the client to e-sign and possibly pay, depends on if it's a bank product or not. Pick up tax returns. So if you're working on a drop-off return, prepare next, not waiting. Once you talk to the client and everything, and they're going to physically come in and pick up the tax return and sign all the paperwork and not do it online, then the preparer is going to move it down here to pick up tax return. And again, you're going to make your note that you contacted the client, however you did it, so they know they're supposed to come in and sign and pay. Pick up other, this is a new one, kind of a miscellaneous free-for-all phone. It's not a tax return. Maybe it's a power of attorney, something like that. It's still going to be in the pickup drawer, but we have it just tagged as other. So we'll see how that goes. This is new this year. As opposed to throwing it in tax return. So now it's going to be considered other if it's any. So tax return is going to be strictly tax returns, and then you'll put it as other if it's anything other than a tax return for pickup. Pending client. Again, this is the preparer's involvement here mainly. Client, you're doing the return. Client doesn't have everything, and you need that information. So you're going to make your note. Try to contact the client, however you need to, by phone, hopefully, and then if not, via text or portal. Move it down here to pending client, make your note. Always got to make a note as if you're never going to return again, so we can't ask you, why is this client sitting here? That's all you ever have to think about is, I'm never coming back, so how would anybody know what's going on with this file? You've got to leave a note. Okay, that's the biggest thing. That's one of the bigger challenges that I see with the new employees are leaving notes. Just think of it as if, how would anybody know what's going on with this file other than me? And why do I want everybody to run and bother me all the time and ask me questions when all I have to do is put a note, and then they never have to bother me. Again, 5 seconds saves 5 hours or more, not to mention aggravation with the client and the whatever employee has to deal with it. So notes, notes, and more notes. Okay. Pending prospect. Real quick on this one. Again, this is only for a select few people. This is if a brand new client communicates with us from the website and says, hey, I'm a new client. I want to do taxes with you guys. I want to send you my documents. So they would send us something through our prospect portal on the homepage. We then set them up with a file, send them instructions on how to upload the docs, and then we park it here, pending prospect, because it's pending and they're a prospect, because just because they say they want to file with us doesn't mean they're really a client yet until they actually do it. So right now I have 2 past due here. So honestly, I should communicate with these guys. That was 20 days ago, 17 days ago. So what happened to them? How come they didn't send us their docs? I mean, I really should. This one may not have an email. I don't know. They must have an email though. I should really send out a message to them. And I have an automatic notification set up to go out to say, hey, what's going on? But if they went somewhere else, whatever, we should give them a call or try to communicate with them and then move them to walked if they are not going to be coming in here. All right, getting back to here. Where are we at here? Pending. All right, and then pending Frank. Again, there's only a select few. Frank is our financial planner guy that is just 2 buildings down from us. It sends us a lot of business. He likes to review all his clients. So typically it's myself and Ethan that work on these, and then we send it over for review where he tries to review it, or he does review it. And then he then says if it's good to go or not. So we have to park it here. Again, I got to put it somewhere. So it's on hold until Frank says it's good to go. And he's our financial guy that sends us business. Extensions filed. As we get closer to April 15th, clients will be saying, hey, file an extension for me to give me some more time to file. So we do file it. We add a year. We file it, e-file it with the extension, and then we move it down here waiting for the client to get back with us so we can finish up the return. Other, these are, I'm not going to get, this is call IRS. So, again, these are usually just myself and Ethan. Tax planning issues, again, using myself or Ethan. Refund offset, that means that it was a bank product client and then the IRS took their money or somebody took their money. So the refund never came because went to pay a past debt. And of course we never got paid. So you might see some statuses of like these from prior years. Pick up tax docs. This is when a client drops off their information, drops off their tax docs, and they're supposed to then come back and then pick up their tax return and sign. Well, then they discover it's easier if they just e-sign and they don't have time to come back. So then we have their tax doc, the originals here, and then we have to then try to get them back to them, or eventually we shred them. But we always have them scanned in. But anyway, that's why we park this here and try to have the client come back and pick them up. Final shred notice. So this is also going down here, goes from pick up tax docs down to final shred notice. And then once we shred it, then the docs are gone. All right. Walked. You can have a lot of walked. That just means that the client came in, maybe they sat down with you, maybe it was virtual. You did the return. Usually you end up doing the return. They're not happy with the refund for whatever reason. It's going to happen just because the client's not aware of how refunds work. And then they're going to say, I'm going somewhere else, or I'm not going to file this year. Well, then you'd move it from tax prep in process to walk, make your note as to why they're not filing with us, which is, unfortunately, it happens. As you see, this is still, I haven't cleared this out yet. So we had 341 from last year. Now I wish they would have been paying clients. That would have been great. But it happens every single year that people waste our time. It's just the nature of the beast. But the thing is, now they're always tagged as walk. So next year when they come in, we might see like, oh, wait a minute, you've walked on us the last 3 years. I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to waste my time on you. Just what are you here for? And are you going to actually get your taxes done? If they say, I just want you to tell me what I'm going to get, and then I compare it to what I do on TurboTax. No, we're not going to waste our time. So, you can go find somebody else if you want to do that. That's what that event's for. And then, of course, completed, that just means That's when everything's done. With e-file that was accepted, we get paid. Move it down to completed events, daily log. If you want to look at this is just going to be like what happened today, how many returns came through. So if you're curious as to how many were checked in, if you look at this daily log, so today, of course, I was playing around with it. So far this year, we've had, I think we've had more than 10, but 3 today, say 10 total. This will just keep on going up. So if you ever see the number here in the beginning is 100, that means we're pretty busy that day. Now, this is different than what it used to be like 10 years ago. If this number said 100, that means we had 100 people that we physically ran through the office. But now with drop-offs and virtuals and all that, it's not as stressful on the office because maybe only half are actually physically coming in. The other ones are just, maybe they dropped off and they don't want it done until a week from now. So it might look like it did come in today, but we may not have actually done the return today. So it's, a little different than it was 10 years ago. Anyway, that is, so for you guys, once you get a feel for things, say if you're the greeter and like, I don't need to know about printing, I don't need to know about reviewing, you can just close this up and just focus in on what's important to you. So say if you're the greeter, you're probably important. What's right here, prepare now waiting. Obviously that's like the lobby, and then just keep an eye on this thing. And again, because you're kind of the eyes of the office right away, the service window too is the eyes of the office. They can kind of see what's going on, see, are we getting busy with clients, both on the home page or physically in the office? And then what's it look like my preparers are doing? Are they staying busy? Do they have a little free time? And so you might have somebody just go up there and say, hey, to one of the preparers, do you have time? This person's been waiting here to say it. So preparers, don't be offended, and don't think you need a manager to just say, hey, could you do this return? It's just we're all working as a team. So our goal is to take care of our clients as quickly and as accurately as possible. So the person in the lobby, their goal is to take care of them physically in the lobby, or they could have checked in on the lobby screen, and it was a virtual check-in, and maybe the greeters seeing all this stuff because they're the eyes. So the preparers are focusing on whatever they're doing at their desk. They don't see the whole big picture. So if someone were to come to you and just say, hey, somebody checked in, online, are you available right now to do a return? So that's why the preparers should kind of communicate with the service window people and the greeter as to if they got to work on something for 30 minutes or so, because otherwise you're probably going to get asked to do a return if they see somebody waiting. So they're not picking on you. They're just trying to take care of the client. That's all. So, and it may not be just service window because we're all kind of working together. So our goal is to take care of the client. And if we see someone maybe looks like they're not working or have something to do, okay. And again, priority is, if it's in prepare now waiting, that's priority number 1. So that's why if you guys don't see this at the top of your screen, especially the preparers, let me know, because that means I forgot to turn it on your security level. But the reason this is displaying here, which matches this, is because even if you're inside of a client file, you can see them stacking up here. So if you're working on a drop off and you see them stacking up in prepare now waiting, you need to stop doing your drop off unless somebody else can take care of it. But if they're starting to stack up, this is priority number 1. Drop off is like number 3. So unfortunately, you might have to put that on hold and go back. And I know it's going to take you longer than to just knock them out. But again, we want to take care of live people. Either they're live on their couch or they're live in the lobby, but they are priority number 1. Just so you guys remember that. Because I think in the past, ever since the pandemic, and we've all switched how things work, we don't have that sense of urgency anymore for the people or that fall into prepare now waiting, just because half of them are not physically even in our lobby. But I don't care. If they're waiting, I don't care where they're waiting, home or in the lobby, they are waiting and they expect to have their tax return done. So they are priority number 1. So you might get a knock on your cubicle and say, hey, can you take care of this one? We got them in the lobby, virtually or physically. Okay. And that is it. It went on longer than I thought, but that is an explanation of all that. Again, if you don't know what something is, just hover over it. It'll tell you. If you still don't know what it is, come ask. Come ask me. Come ask Ethan. Whoever has a good understanding of the workflow. All right. Thank you.